All right, everybody, good morning. So we're going to be working on isoline questions, right? And we're going to be starting with number one, where it says draw the 500-foot isoline, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line that separates numbers that are bigger than 500 than numbers that are less than, right? So let's see, where can I start? So I see 500 right here. So I'll start here, right? And as I'm drawing, I'm going to ask myself, where can 500 fit? So remember, this line right here is part of your 400 line, right? If you follow all the way through, you see 400 line here, right? So therefore, 500 is going to fit in between here. So if I was to erase, all right. And now, can 500 fit in between these two? 565 and 570? No, but 500 can fit in between 565 and 400. So I'm going to continue my line here. All right. Can 500 fit between 400 line here and 450? No, but 500 can fit in between here. So I'm going to continue my line. Right? 500 can fit in between these two. So I'm going to continue. And 500 can fit in between 450 and 560. So I'm going to continue here. I'm going to connect, right, with my 500 line. And I'm going to ask, where can the value 500 fit in between? I see 460 here and 560. So 500 could fit in between. All right. Can 500 fit between 560 and 570? No, it cannot. But it can fit in between 570 and 450. So I'm going to continue. 500 fits between 450 and 550. So I'm going to continue on the outside, right? And can 500 fit between 550 and 575? No, it cannot, right? Now, as I'm drawing, you may be tempted to just jump right in between here, but look, 500 cannot fit in between 550 and 575, but it can fit in between 490 and 550. So therefore, I'm going to go around through, right? And I'm going to connect with my 500 line. All right. Now my line is still incomplete because it's either going to be a closed loop or to extend to either of the edges on the map. So remember, this line right here you see is 400, right? And 500 is here. So 500 definitely fits between 550 and 400. So I'm going to keep it going, right? I can still extend to 500. Now I see 460 and 400 here, right? I see 450, 460, 500 can't fit either way, but 500 can fit in between 540 and 450. So I'm going to continue on, right? And I see 500 here. So I'm going to make sure to connect with that point. And 500 fits between 450 and 530. So I'm going to go here. And 500 fits in between 460 and 530. And what do you know? I closed the loop. Yeah. If I want to label it, you can. I'll just label this my 500-foot isoline. All right, number two. Number two says, what is a contour interval, right? So the contour interval represents how much each line is going up or down by. So I see 0, I see 100, I see 200, I see 300, I see 400. And remember, we just drew a 500 line here. What's the pattern that you notice? Each line is going up by what? 100, right? And so that's the counter interval. Each line is going up by 100. The counter interval for a isoline map, it does not change. So every time you see isolines, it's either going to go up or down by 100. Even if you take a look here, right? You see 400s here. This next line would have been 300. This next line inside represents to be 200. All right, so that's something to keep in mind. All right, number 3, what is the value of A, right? So when I'm looking right here, if I follow along, let me just erase so I can see, right? I see 400 follows this entire line, right? Where D is and where B is. And when I look, 300 follows the second line here, right? So I'll just write 300 here. And then what would this line be? Well, when I look, 200, right? When I follow that line, it looks like 200 would be here. And then look at 100, right? And 100 would be here. Do you see a pattern? You see how, as I'm going in this direction, you see how my numbers are decreasing by 100 when you're following it? So that means the next isoline given will be 0. So where A is located will end up being the value 0, 0 feet. And D, what is the value of D? Well, I gotta follow and look, where is D, right? Let me change to the color red. So D is right here, and take a look to see what line does D follow to. D follows right here, the 400 isoline. So that means D has a value of 400. All right, number 5 says, we're looking at number 5, what is the maximum value of x to the nearest whole number? All right, so when I'm looking, we're talking about right here. What is the maximum value of x right here? Okay. Well, one of the things we have to remember, right? What is the counter interval again that we learned? The counter interval is 100 feet. That means that the lines are either increasing or decreasing by how much? 100 feet. We with me so far? So when I zoom in, okay, and I see that 400 is here, I know this next line is 300, right? And the next ISO line that they give us is 200, right? So if there was another ISO line inside of here, right? Wouldn't it be 100, right? But because the fact that there is not, right? Because there is the fact that is not another ISO line inside, I have to ask myself, okay, what is the lowest X can be what value in between when I'm looking at X? That means X could be a minimum of 101 and a maximum up to 199. Why? Because counter lines are going up and down by 100. If there isn't another ISO line in the middle, that means that the lowest that it can go is less than 100 down, right? So I can't minus a full 100. It would be less than minus a full 100. So that's why my values for X can be anywhere from 101 to 199. And so because of the fact that they're asking, let me zoom back out, because of the fact that they're asking what is the maximum value is going to be 199. All right. One last thing just to keep in mind as you see me doing this as well. As you're going further inside, right? You see a circle going inside another circle, going inside another circle. The numbers will either increase as you get towards the center or they will decrease. all right, as you go from one loop inside another. So that's just something to keep in mind. All right, so we're going to look at number 6. All right, we'll take a look at number 6. So number 6 says, what is the distance using the scale between point A and point B? So one of the things that you see here is I drew my very own mimic of a scrap sheet of paper, right? And you're gonna take a scrap sheet of paper like I did here, and you see what I did in the red box, and you're gonna label it A and B. Okay, you're gonna label it A and B. Boom. Give me a second. Boom. All right, like how I did here. All right. Now, after you took your scrap sheet of paper, you labeled where A and B is, we're going to look right here for the distance, right? What is the distance using the scale between point A and B? So I'm going to take my scrap sheet of paper now labeled A and B, and I'm going to move it to the scale right here. Okay. Now, one of the things you may notice, what have you noticed? You notice that where A and B is, that the scale, A and B is greater than the scale. So what you're going to do, we know that 2 is right here, so I'm going to label 2. And we need to find out how much more is this space here to get to B, right? That's what we need to figure out. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to now take my paper and I'm going to move the 2 to the 0 to find out how much extra it is where B is, all right? And when you look, when you take a look, now, B is slightly less than 1. If you take a look, right, where B is, right, is slightly less than 1. So I'm going to say that it's 0.9. All right. Now, if you were to say 1, that's fine. It's close enough. All right. I'm just say 0.9. So what is my total distance? It's going to be 2 plus, let me bring it over here. All right, do it over here. It's going to be 2, right, that I got here, plus 0.9. And what is your final answer that you get? You get 2.9 kilometers for number 6. Okay. Um, if you have any other questions, right, especially using the scale, you can look at my video. That's map scale questions. All right. But that's pretty much the same steps that we're doing for this question, you're doing for the others. All right. If you have any questions, let me know. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Have a wonderful, blessed day. Second thought, I'm going to go over one more other question. If you look at the next page of the worksheet, all right. So it says draw the 1000 millibar and 996 millibar isoline. All right, so I'm going to start with the 1000. Okay. I see 1000 right here. And when I'm drawing my line, remember to always ask yourself, where can the value of 1000 fit in between? Now, because this is dealing also with air pressure, yes, and we already see they've given data points that's in the water as well too, right? So we can continue that pattern. So 1000 is here. And can 1000 fit between 1002 and 996? Yes, it can. Can 1000 fit between 998 and 1002? Yes, it can. Right? Can 1000 fit between 1001 and 998? Yes, it can. I'm going to go over to 1000. 1000 can fit in between these two numbers here. So I'm going to keep going. 1000 can fit between 998 and 1004. I'm going to keep going. 1000 can definitely fit between 996 and 1002. And look, 1000 cannot fit between these two numbers, but it can fit between 999 and 1001. 1000 could fit between 999 and 1001. 1,000 could fit in between 997 and 1,001, and 1,000 could fit between 999 and 1,002, right? And it respects the rule. It's a closed loop. I'll just write 1,000 here. And I'll do the same for the 996, right? 996 is right here. All right. And I gotta ask myself, can 996 fit in between 993 and 997? Yes, it can. Can 996 fit between 993 and 1000? Yes, it can. It could also fit between 993 and 998. I connect 996. 996 can fit in between 995 and 999. And 996 can fit in between 993 and 997. And boom. And I'll label this 996. For number two, it says, what is the contour interval? Remember, the contour interval is how much each line, the value of how much each line is going up or down by. So, and it does not change on the map, right? So I see 1008 here, and I see 1004. If I was to subtract these two numbers, 1008 minus 1004, then therefore the value is going to be 4 millibars as my counter interval. So therefore, my counter interval is going to be 4 millibars. All right. Number three says, identify the maximum possible value of x. Well, what is x located in between? Now, see, x is given right here, and x is located in between 1008 and 1012, right? So what is a maximum possible value? That means that it has to be greater than 1008, but less than 1012. So therefore, it would be 1011 millibars. Number four, what is the lowest value of L to the nearest whole number? Now, we haven't got into the pressure unit, but L represents low pressure, and they want to know what is the lowest value, right? Now, keep in mind, how much is each line going down by? It is going down by 4. Remember the counter interval was 4? So is there another counter line inside 996? There isn't. So that means that my values inside here, right? It would have to be less, it would have to be less than 996, but greater than 992, right? It'll be less than 996, but greater than 992 because we have to respect the counter interval. So there isn't a 992 isoline, so that means the next lowest number would be 993. So we're going to look at number 5. So it says, what is the distance using the scale between point X and Z? So when I scroll up, I'm going to find point X, point Z. You can do this using a scrap paper. I'm just going to mark my line, right? And have a straight line using your scrap paper. Sorry. I'm going to mark a straight line using from X to Z right here, all right? Now, because I'm using the computer, all right, because I'm using the computer, all right, I'm going to now take this line and I'm going to bring it to the scale, all right? I've done this on paper too, so trust me when I tell you this is the actual length that it is. Give me a second. But because you have scrap paper, you don't have to worry about what I'm doing, all right? But now, as you can see, this is the length that we see right here, right, using the scale. Let me just scroll up. All right, so we can see. All right. Okay. So when I have my scrap paper where you see my red line, and maybe I could even make a box. I apologize, guys, just to focus on the length of this thing. Yep, right here. Perfect. Okay. All right. So when I'm looking, right, once again, it's bigger than the scale. So I'm gonna mark my 2 mile mark right here. And because from X to Z, this is X and this is where Z was, I'm gonna shift my scrap paper. I'm gonna shift my scrap paper to now move the 2 to the 0 to see how much more. Okay. Now when I shifted it right here, here we go. So when I shifted it, I also see 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, 1.9. So it looks like to be another 1.9, right? So 2 plus 1.9 gives me 3.9 miles. And that's the answer for number 6. If you got 4 miles, that's perfectly fine too. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Have a wonderful, blessed day.